In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, and actually I didn't realize my question numbers were different than all of yours until Thursday night. Somebody said, "What number are you on?" And I told them that. Well, I had in my notes conflated 4 and 5, I think, made them one. So we're on question 7, which is the discussion question, what happens after death? And from verses 1, 6, 8, and 9. And we got about, as far as my answer is concerned, we got about halfway through it. So we'll review it a little bit and then we'll.
Did we skip number 6?
No, number 6, my new number 6, was what is our present circumstance while we're still alive?
Yeah, I didn't have any notes on that, so I thought.
I must have just wowed you and you were just completely unable to take notes. What I had done, when God created man, what was his purpose and what help did he give to succeed, numbers 4 and 5, I had made number 4. I just answered them both as one. Probably somewhere along the line I deleted something and it deleted my number 4 or 5 and I kept going. So, all right, so let's begin with a prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you so very much for the good day you've given us today, for the blessings we've enjoyed, and the safe arrival for each one here tonight. We're thankful to see some that have been away from us, and we rejoice in their being with us as well. We thank you for your word. We thank you for your presence with us as we study. We pray for guidance and understanding of this letter and of the specific topics that we're going to be dealing with tonight. Help us not only to understand them, but also to live by them and to be willing to share them with others that we come in contact with. And most of all, Father, we thank you for Jesus, for all that he's done for us, and it's in his name we pray. Amen. So my day started out really good because Ryder Lee Anderson became officially, legally, our grandson today with the trial. The judge finalizing everything. And so that was pretty special this morning. All right, so discussion question in light of question 6 is what it should say. I didn't bring a pen in with me. And that had to do with our present circumstance while we're still alive. And so even though we know we live in this world, we live in this earth, God has fashioned us, prepared us, purposed us to be with him in eternity. And that this life would be, this mortality that we have now would be swallowed up in life, in eternal life. So the question, what happens after death, based on 4 or 5 verses from this chapter, and I talked about the fact last week that there's a lot of answers to that question in the world. If you're an atheist, your answer to what happens after death is what? Nothing, because it's over, it's done. It is, in fact, the Hindus and the Buddhists who believe in reincarnation. The Jainists, they're another group that do that. And I think the idea of reincarnation is the second part of what I said, which is after you have so many opportunities to get it right, then you'll finally become one with the universe. And then, of course, there are some different ideas that people have. Catholicism teaches the existence of a middle area of purgatory besides the other two. And all of those, the Bible, I think, pretty much teaches against that. We looked at Ecclesiastes 12:7 and Genesis 3:19, that the body's going to return to what?
Dust.
To dust, from which it came. And the spirit is going to return to God. And Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 5 and 6 and 10 seems to indicate that the dead have no more engagement, involvement with life here under the sun. So when your life here is over, there's no more interaction, knowledge of what's happening on the earth. So, when a guy hits a home run, he hits the home plate and he goes like this, that his dad or his grandpa are watching him. They have no clue as to what's going on. There are no ghosts roaming around, no disembodied spirits. They have no involvement. And then from our own text in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 10, and that is that we're going to appear before the judgment seat of Christ so that each may receive what is due us for the things done in the body, whether good or evil, and so that when you die, your destiny, your fate is sealed. Not going to be any changing, which then would bring in the Mormon doctrine where people can be baptized for the dead, and the old Catholic doctrine that you could pay money to get your relatives out of purgatory and move them along. Yes?
So understanding that we can't do anything to earn our salvation, it does seem by that statement that good things we do will still be recognized in some manner.
Yeah, you're going to be rewarded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because the doctrine of total depravity, which is not one we hold to, but one that is out there,
Yeah.
kind of seems to disagree with that.
Well, when the servants, for instance, the parable of the talents,
Yeah.
One was given 5, one was given 2, and one was given 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and who received the welcome?
The 5 is in.
The 5 and the 2, and how much of their own equity did they put into that project?
No.
0. It's all grace.
All grace, yeah.
It was all grace. So they didn't earn it.
Yeah.
I mean, they pleased God by doing what He wanted them to do, but there was no earning of it. And that's a very limited example because, maybe the guy that earned 5 more along the way, lost some, cursed the guy that sold him those stocks, and in some way sinned, and so what about that? Well, again, that's where the grace comes in. So none of us live perfect lives. None of us earn it. But when it talks about, you look at 2 Corinthians 5:10, most of the time we look at it from the negative point of view. You're going to get what's due to you negatively in your punishment. We'll also get what God has decided is our reward. Come, you blessed of my Father, and well done, all of that. So at that point, that's where we can kind of draw a line, even in our fellowship, where we might find agreement with everybody. And so we spent some time last week talking about that there's some people that believe that we immediately go to heaven, that when we die, we go to heaven. And I'll say what I said last week. They may be right. And if they are right and we go right to heaven and I'm wrong because I don't think that's the case, I'm not going to stand at the gates and argue. And say, I'll come back later. I need to go down here first and then you can bring me up here later. That's not going to happen. I think this is really key, and I hadn't really noticed this before. I think this argument, one way or the other, hinges on whether you believe 2 Corinthians 5 is the main teaching of Paul on what happens after death, or 1 Thessalonians 4 is the main teaching of Paul about what happens after death. If you're just looking at 2 Corinthians 5, there is no interim state. It's not there. And so if you believe that this is the foundation teaching and the other is extra, then you might come to that conclusion. The question I ask, why did Paul write 1 Thessalonians 4? Why did he write the information that's found in 1 Thessalonians 4, 1 through 10?
Concerned about the dead there, so he's answering their question about what happens to their relatives.
Okay, exactly. So there were people in Thessalonica who had relatives, believers, who had died, and what were they afraid of? They missed out. They missed out. And so Paul goes through and tells what's going to happen. Wouldn't that be the perfect time for Paul to say, don't worry, they're in heaven. You don't even have to say anything else. You don't have to say what's going to happen when Jesus comes back. Just you don't have to worry. They're already in heaven. And that seems to me would be the perfect time. So consequently, I lean towards the fact that 1 Thessalonians 4 is the more detailed. And I can make 2 Corinthians 5 fit into 1 Thessalonians 4 because I just say Paul just didn't talk about the other thing. It's like, 1 Thessalonians 4 doesn't talk about the wicked dead. He just talks about the saved. And so it's more specific that way. So I obviously believe that we don't just go right to heaven. And if we go right to heaven, why is there a resurrection? If I'm already there, why would I have to come back? Doesn't make sense. If I'm there, I must have the body to be there. And so the resurrection becomes an extra thing that's not necessary. And so, and listen, I believe, and I think, and Otto, you might jog my memory on this, but didn't Howard believe that Hades didn't exist anymore?
I'll tell you what Howard believed is that it existed, and just like we talk about in Ephesians, the 4th chapter, it existed until Christ died.
Right.
Christ not only went above, but he also went below,
Right.
which was the Hadean realm, picked up paradise and took it with him to
Right.
heaven with the saints in it.
Right.
And I'm one of the guys that kind of believes we go to heaven because it may be in paradise in heaven, but it's still in heaven.
Right. And in the spiritual realm, we try to put borders on things, okay, so here it is this, and here is this, because we're three-dimensional and we like to have locations. But as we go through this, we'll see. I think that paradise is paradise. I think it's a wonderful place, but I still think it's part of the Hadean realm of the departed spirits, and that they haven't got their bodies yet. When do we get our bodies according to 1 Thessalonians 4? And 1 Corinthians 15 at the resurrection. Yes.
I just want to say one other thing to that, though, is it doesn't really matter what you believe in life.
That's right.
It does not affect either of our
Right.
denominations.
That's right.
We have the right.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said I'm not going to argue. If it's one way or the other, I'm not going to argue. So, just like if somebody believes in heaven and they end up in paradise instead and said, "Hey, I feel like I got shortchanged here," So
Sorry, who's Howard?
Howard Reagan, he used to be one of the elders here.
Oh, okay.
I knew him very well because he looked right into my right ear most every day while I'm working. He is at this desk looking at me this way.
In the sweat box.
Yes, in the sweat box. Man, he did not want me to get an air conditioner. All right, so my belief is that when the dead die, the spirit that returns to God returns to God in the sense that it goes to the Hadean realm, or to Hades, which is a temporary place for the righteous and the unrighteous. And the Greek word is Hades, H-A-D-E, with a thing on it. We've anglicized it to Hades. I'm not going to go through all the passages where the King James Version says hell. King James Version got it right one time. And that's in 1 Corinthians 15:55. O death, or O grave, where is your victory? That's Hades there. And there's a lot of passages that Jesus did not go to hell. But I also explained that the King James Version translators didn't think of hell like we think of hell. It was a place beyond which they could see. They didn't think of it as the place of eternal punishment. So we can give them slack on that. But again, languages change, and because languages change and usage changes, it becomes incumbent upon us to stay with that. So in this realm of the dead, there are two places separated from each other. The first one is Tartarus, and let me give you the passages I want somebody to read. Luke 16:23 and 24. And since you're reading Luke 16:23 and 24, please read verse 28 as well. And then 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4. So who has 16:23 and 24? Okay, go ahead, Megan.
And in Hades, being in torment, he lifted
Yeah, just keep it open because I'm going to have you read another bit there in just a second. Go ahead, read verse 28 now.
For I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they come into this place of torment.
Okay, so there's the place of torment. In 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4 is where we have the Greek word. Yes, go ahead, Sam.
I just have the passage if you're ready for it. 2 Peter 2:4.
2:4.
God spared not angels when they sinned, but cast them down to hell, and committed them to pits of darkness to be reserved unto judgment.
Okay, and what translation are you reading?
It's the American Standard.
Okay. So there again, we've translated the word Tartarus as hell. Hell is a place prepared for the devil and his angels, but I don't know that that's what Peter has in mind there. Jude also talks about them being reserved in chains of darkness. And so that's in many ways, and to many people, that's the torment side of Hades. Now, paradise is the other side of Hades. A great gulf is fixed between them, according to Jesus' teaching in Luke 16. Megan, I got several things for you to read. Let me give out 2 more. Acts 2:25 through 28. And then somebody else can read Acts 2:29 and 34. So 25 through 28, and then 29 and 34, somebody else. So read Acts 16:22. Megan, did you stay there?
Luke 16?
Luke 16, what did I say?
Sorry, you said Acts. It's okay. Verse 22 says, the poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side.
Okay.
The rich man also died and was buried.
Okay, and then the latter part of verse 25.
Abraham said, child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish.
Okay. And then somebody else, I didn't give this one out, Luke 23, verse 43. This is Jesus on the cross. I bet you know who he's talking to. Okay, Mike.
And he said to him, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
Okay. So this is paradise. It's a place of rest, and we'll look at that a little bit more in just a second. Who has the Acts 2:25 through 28? Okay, Dave.
David said about him, I saw the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest in hope, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead. You will not let my Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence.
Okay, so Jesus went there, but he didn't stay. Okay, and then who has Acts 2:29 and 34? Okay, Randy.
Just 29.
And verse 34. But
Men and brethren, let me speak freely to you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his tomb is with us to this day. And 34.
yes.
For David did not ascend into the heavens, but he says himself, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool.
Okay, so David went to the place of the dead, and he's still there. And in fact, verse 34 says he didn't ascend into heaven. So he's still in the realm of the dead. So back to what we said, our destiny is sealed. And when you die, will you know at that moment what your eternal destiny is going to be?
Yes.
Yes. Because if you're in paradise and receiving rest, then you know that you're saved. If you're in the place of torment, you know you're going to be lost. Your destiny is sealed. So when you die, there's a judgment in a sense that you are found guilty or innocent, saved or lost. Now, I use our modern justice system. When a criminal is found guilty, where do they send him? They can send him back to jail until when? There's another time coming. What's that? Sentencing date. Okay, and that's when the judgment is issued. It doesn't work for those that are innocent because they're free to go. They don't say, well, we have a really nice hotel over here, to wait till we decide for sure that you're going to be free. But this is a place in the meantime until that great day when judgment is issued. And so we have the dead who are going to, the righteous dead who are going to receive their redeemed bodies and be raised from the dead, and meet. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's keep going here. So it's a place of rest. We just read, and Megan just read, Lazarus. Where was Lazarus with regards to Abraham? Yes, laying in his bosom, at rest, at peace, given comfort. Okay, Revelation chapter 6 and verse 11. Somebody want to turn there? And somebody else turn to 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 13. So who has Revelation 6:11? Okay, Ross?
And there was given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest for a little while longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren, who were to be killed even as they had been, would be completed also.
Okay, so they have been, the people that were there are told they have been killed, right? So they've died. They've received white robes. And what are they told to do? Rest a little longer. Yeah, but the word actually means to rest.
There's probably no concept of time.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no. But that's my opinion.
What was that scripture?
Revelation 6, verse 11. Who has 1 Thessalonians 4:13? Okay, Mike? Clark?
But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope.
Okay, and so what are they doing?
Sleeping.
They're sleeping. Those who are asleep. And we say, well, that's a euphemism for death. Well, yeah, but maybe it's a euphemism for death because it's what they're doing. What do you have on tombstones out here across the street?
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. That's where that comes from. So, and the Greek word is anapau, A-N-A-P-A-U-O. It means to rest or to take one's ease. So it's this place of paradise is a place of rest and peace. Not for the body. Where's the body? In the grave. It's turning back to dust. But for the spirit. Now, what that looks like there, what the spirits are doing there, or I know the spirits that were wicked, they're being tormented. If Jesus is accurate with that thing, and I don't see why he wouldn't be, but I don't know if they're talking to each other, and I think they're asleep. And I asked this question of you before: how aware are you of time when you're sleeping? Not at all.
So how do you fit that with the Lazarus being there comforted and the person who's in torment saying, hey, send him back? It doesn't sound like he's asleep.
Did Lazarus ever respond?
No, I'm talking about the other guy in torment.
Yeah.
He's talking, and Moses,
Abraham
is responding to him, so Abraham's in the same place,
right.
and he's able to respond. That's
Yeah.
why I haven't thought about
Yeah,
sleep.
I know. That's a little wrinkle for me too. Moses and Elijah came back and appeared with Jesus. Wake up! I have something for you to do real quick, and then you can come back. I don't know. It appears to me that paradise is a place of rest, no awareness of time. We're at peace. Received white robes. Those people there in Revelation that Ross just read are crying out, "How long?" And they're wanting revenge. They're wanting to be avenged, I should say, for the death that they died, the martyr's death that they died, and just rest. So that's why I don't know what's going on. I don't know, is it a deep sleep or what? I just know that that's the place of rest, and I can just leave it at that. Now I have some things that I believe are going to occur after the resurrection. Paul said he wants to go and be with Christ, and we have that we have those statements. But it appears to me that in 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 17 that we just read, that we're going to meet him where? In the air. So the Lord is going to send Jesus. The dead are going to be raised, and the dead are going to be raised and meet Jesus in the air. And then according to the text that we just looked at a few weeks ago in 2 Thessalonians chapter 4 and at verse 14, we read, because we know that the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with you to himself. And so the Lord's going to take us right into God's presence and present us to him when the resurrection takes place. And I kind of have a feeling, but it's just a belief that we'll know each other in heaven, that we'll have some memories. I don't know how many. I don't know of what. I mean, don't we all have selective memory? When I was in elementary school, these were my best buds. You know, I would never forget them. I couldn't tell you their names if it depended on me. And so things become more important later on in life. You know, that's why I laugh at people say, the first thing I'm going to do when I get to heaven is I'm going to ask God about this. And I said, yeah, you won't. You're not even going to be thinking about your questions that you had about here. So, I know that the rich man in Tartarus in Luke 16, Abraham specifically said, remember that in your life you had good things and he didn't. So maybe in that case, memory is also a part of the punishment that we remember. So, anyway.
But it also could mean that we have that eternal life memory that God has.
Right.
So,
well, but you know, so there's not going to be any sadness. And so if I have a parent or a brother or a spouse who wasn't faithful, what kind of memory is that going to be? Yeah, so and that's not going to be allowed to come in. So if we have memory, I think it's going to be limited. Yeah. All right, open it up.
I just look at that as, I'm going to remember, I'm going to know that they're all saints.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I won't know their names, I don't know that
Right.
until I get there.
Yeah.
Recognize them as brother.
Any other comments? Yes, Megan, and then Henry.
Obviously, the statement that Jesus says on the cross, like to the, and you know, it could always be, or it could have been a special circumstance, but like Jesus was dying himself then, and today you will be with me in paradise.
Right.
But like it wasn't, Jesus hadn't ascended back into heaven yet.
Right.
So, and he was, you know, destroying the gates of Hades.
Right.
So, you know, is there like that also that waiting place that is a paradise?
Right.
So, but that's not back into heaven.
Right.
Yet.
Well, and so you say he's destroying the gates of Hades, and what I would say is the gates of Hades couldn't keep him in. The death could not prevent him from coming out and building his church. That's what that statement is saying. Which is another King James, you know, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. All right, well, last chance to get your
You dealt with the whole judgment part, and we do that later. Because one of the things I have a big difference with most of my religious friends is they believe there's going to be the righteous only first, and not the wicked. The wicked will come later. There's going to be this rapture day.
Yeah.
Or just.
Yeah.
Are you dealing with that in this too?
No.
Okay.
No, and I would go over to John, was it 6? That the hour is coming when the dead will hear the voice, and there's going 5:28, that all the dead are going to rise. That's what Jesus said. So, and 1 Thessalonians 4 isn't talking about a rapture; it's just talking about the dead from the standpoint of the righteous dead.
And that's why I want to bring it up, because that's one of the biggest differences that I see from most of my religious friends. And if we don't understand what they believe on that, and can't go into John 5 and say, wait a minute, the hour is coming which all in the tomb shall hear his voice
Right.
and come forth. It's not just some.
Right.
The ones that are good deeds, they'll be rewarded, and those
Right.
It's
Right.
everybody.
And that's just a good example of where context makes all the difference. Who is Paul writing to? He's writing to Christians. What is he writing about? He's writing about Christians who've lost their faithful family members. So let me tell you what's going to happen to them. Okay? At the same time, as according to Jesus, all of the dead are going to be raised. And listen, when I was a kid and I think about the judgment, when you think about the judgment, you think about this huge long line of all humanity, because and there's a big screen because your whole life is going to be videoed up there. Everybody's got everything you did is going to be up there. And so guess where I wanted to be? I wanted to be at the back when I was immature and young. I would be the last one. I would just put this off as long as possible. It's like I was telling Mindy yesterday, all through grade school, the last day of school, I knew the report card was going to say, repeat. That I was going to flunk and have to do that year again. And I got A's all the time, but I had no confidence. So apparently when I was a young Christian, I also had no confidence about what was going to happen. Tim?
I was just thinking that these kind of questions and challenges and stuff is not new. Obviously there was the First Thessalonians, but another seems to be the book of Jude.
Yes.
He was going to write about their common salvation,
right.
But then he turns and talks about some things which
wow.
are really hard to understand.
Yeah, and 2 Peter as well has some of those same statements in it. Yes.
I think one thing that can make just this whole topic so challenging, like maybe two things. One is it doesn't seem that it's a huge focus, and I think there's a reason for that.
Right.
We don't necessarily need to have all the answers,
right.
or else we would.
Right.
And then the other thing is there's a lot of like cultural context, I think,
right.
that is also important. Like the story of the rich man and Lazarus, like that seems to be related to a lot of Jewish traditions, and
right.
Jesus is using that as like a backdrop to teach us,
right.
to teach a lesson, or like using the words Tartarus and Hades and stuff like that's Greek,
right.
Greek culture.
Yeah, Tartarus was the lowest realm of the dead. And it's where all the gods kept the worst wicked people there. Yeah, and so it does. It uses that language because that's what they were used to. And my only response would be with regards to the rich man and Lazarus, even when Jesus is teaching a parable, which I don't know that was a parable, it's never said to be a parable, he didn't use false things to teach a truth. So, I mean, there really was a sower who would sow seed, and there's a little tiny mustard seed, so there's truth in it there.
So basically, no one has gone to heaven until Jesus returns.
Jesus is there.
Yeah, but no
He's the first fruits, and he's the one. And not as far as my understanding, nobody's there. No humans. Yeah, there's angels there. Yeah, yeah. And when I say angels, I'm talking about myriads of creatures. There's not just like one kind of angel. I mean, we already know that there's cherubim and seraphim and yeah. All right, let's see if we can actually go through a whole nother question. Question 8. So on what basis do we conduct our lives now? This would be a good verse. Verse 7. What's verse 7? You all know 2 Corinthians 5:7.
Walk by faith and not by sight.
And not by sight. Right.
Look at that.
What?
That's a question 9.
So, and it says, for we, and it's literally walk. Literally we walk or live by faith, not by sight. And that seems to be, to me, and you're right, Ross, because verse 7 to me seems to be a parenthetical statement between verse 6 and verse 8. And in fact, maybe in your Bibles, you may even have parentheses. Some of my translations have little, or a hyphen or something, yeah, to separate it out. But that doesn't detract from the significance or importance of what Paul wrote here. And listen, this is one of the most difficult principles that we as Christians have to live by, at least as far as applying to us. And like all general principles revealed by God, this is a principle for us to live by. And it has a lot of applications that are appropriate. You've probably heard whole sermons preached on this verse. But I think Paul has just really one in mind. And the context to which the for, or the gar, refers to in the Greek, that when we are at home in the body, where are we? Or what are we? We're absent from the Lord. So the presence of God in our lives is totally a matter of faith. Okay? We can't see him. It's not something that we see. And at least in the sense of being in his actual glorious presence. So until we're there, till we're in God's presence, as he said we're going to be in 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 14, it's a matter of us walking by faith and accepting that by faith. And I've just had a thought here. I wonder if the angels are amazed that we will do that. That we'll live, serve, even being willing to die for a God that we can't see. Because they can see him. And yet we love him, and we will live for him. We'll sacrifice for him. And listen, I don't know about the angels. I know it amazes the enemies of God that we will do that. They're shocked at that. So at the present moment in our lives, we are content with walking by faith and not requiring sight. And that faith brings us confidence that at some point in our existence, we will strike this tent, or this tent will be struck, whether that happens at our death or when Jesus returns, and that we're going to be given this new heavenly dwelling, spiritual body, and be presented into the very presence of God by Jesus himself. So that's an exciting, that's what Paul's saying. That's why we're doing, that's why we live. We walk by faith and not by sight. So let's go ahead and take another one. We've got 5 minutes. What is the goal of our lives, and what is one motivation Paul mentions here in verses 9 through 10? So what is the goal of our lives? To please God. We have a little Greek conjunction there at the beginning, D-O, D-I-O. The NIV says so, which is, I think is a little weak there. And so we make it our goal. I think, indeed, is a little bit more powerful, or therefore. Paul already talked about the preference that he'd have. We'd rather be absent from the body and present with the Lord. But our lives here have a consequence on our eternity. So while we're here at home in the body or away from it, wherever we are seeking to provide pleasure to the Lord. The Greek word here is eurestos. It means well-pleasing. And this Greek word, and I'll spell it for you if you want, E-U-A, because I know all of you are really anxious to go home and look it up in your thesaurus. Not thesaurus, concordance or something like that. E-U-A-R-E-S-T-O-S. It's used 9 times in the New Testament. Only by Paul. He's the only one that uses it. And to make it our goal is the Greek word philotemome, which means to love or seek after honor, to zealously strive for, to desire very strongly. So we make it our ambition, we make it our aim to be well-pleasing to God. If I was just to translate the Greek literally, it would say, we make it our ambition, whether being at home or being away, well-pleasing to him to be. And again, verse 10 begins with gar this time, which is the therefore. So further motivation to make Jesus our number one priority, so that the things done in the body, the things that they're viewed not singly here, but as the entire lifetime, our entire life that we've lived, because that's how it's going to be judged. That it's good if lived in faith and not by sight, and it's bad if it's lived any other way. So again, getting back to what we talked about, the judgment and the slideshow and every deed going to be up there. No, it's the whole of your life. The encapsulation of your life is what is going to be judged. And besides, if you're a Christian, is there any remembrance of the sin that you committed? Yeah, so that's not going to be brought up again. And it's on the basis of that life that we lived that we're going to receive what is due. And I think while that's true in general, like in Matthew 25, of all the people that are judged, listen, were there any people among the goats that claimed to know Jesus and work for him and live for him? Lord, did we not do all these things in your name, and just list them all out? Or when did we see you when you had these needs, and et cetera, et cetera? So they would have thought that they should have been in that other group over there. I think there's been a mistake. I'm supposed to be with the sheep. But I think probably in this text, Paul has in mind those who are making it their aim to please him. And again, some perhaps more than others. Again, back to the parable of the talents. In general, how would you describe those three men? They were servants of who? Of the Lord. They are all three servants of the Master. And all judged for what they did and the consequences. And one of them, who was a servant of the Master, didn't try. Didn't trust the Lord's evaluation of him. And I suppose that there's going to be those, even among the Corinthians, that Paul has some doubts about. Let's finish up with this. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 12 and 13. He said, I'll keep on doing what I'm doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things they boast about. So these are the enemies of Paul that are in the church in Corinth. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing in order to cut the ground out. I'm going to take them down at their knees. And then verse 13, he says, for such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. So there's some who wanted to be considered sheep, when in reality they were goats. And I think we finished that whole lesson. Wowee. Oh, that was my new Bible, $6,000.